Hello, good afternoon, or good evening, or whenever you're watching this. This is the Burn KC ScorchCast. I am your host, Alex Blackburn. We're back, folks. We're back. It's good to be back. My apologies for not getting this show out this past Sunday. Number one, I didn't have Adobe figured out. If you've been keeping up with that whole situation. And number two, I was at the Kansas City Renaissance Fair with a couple friends as well as my girlfriend, which that was a ton of fun. Went with the Kansas City Blues representatives, and including myself, and just had a really great time. We competed in the Highland Games. It was a ton of fun. I won myself a kilt, which was pretty cool. May wear it on the show, may not. I don't know. But we'll see. But other than that, yeah, just got a decent sized show ahead. We got some week 2 review and week 3 preview for college football. Got the Royals burning question that we gotta go over. Got the Kansas City Chiefs going over last week's loss against the Lions, as well as some Chris Jones and Travis Kelce news. And then just got a few soccer items and some Blues news. So yeah, let's get started. Okay. So first things first, we're gonna go over some college football stuff. Um, all 3 local teams had a successful weekend, which was pretty good. All 3 coming away with big wins. Kansas beat Illinois 34-23 in what was a lot less close game than what the score showed. Basically, Kansas came out just firing and punched Illinois in the mouth. Ended up scoring 28 unanswered points. 21 unanswered points, and then when Illinois finally did answer, Kansas answered right back, making it 28-7 at the half. And folks, again, like I said, the score does not reflect how close it was. I mean, Kansas really did dominate this game. They looked very, very good. They had a couple of hiccups, but nothing that couldn't be fixed. But the main story as to why Illinois got back into this game, really, in my opinion, was the referee job. We had 2 targeting penalties in this game that, in all honesty, weren't warranted. Um, at least in my opinion. I know that the rules are the rules and everything like that. The referee is the end all be all when it comes to the call, but when you hit a guy in the ribs with, at most, in terms of head contact, at least at most, the side of your helmet, does that really warrant a targeting call? I understand that it was a very hard hit. And I understand that, Altmaier was out for a singular play. But I think that's an incredibly soft call, and the fact that the appeal got denied is pretty ridiculous. And then the other one, I mean, the guy ducked into the tackle. Like, what else is a defender supposed to do? So I guess you could say I am a skeptic of the targeting rules. I understand why they're there, and I appreciate why they're there. But overall, I just think that if we're going to enforce targeting rules, I- that's not the situations that you enforce those in. Um, but other than that, Kansas looked really, really good. They're going to be playing a Nevada team that has lost both of their games by 3 possessions or more. I think thus far this season. Um, I think it was a combined. I think it was a combined 40 points total, if I remember correctly. So Kansas opens as 28-point favorites when they go to Reno. So if they can get a big time win there and a convincing win, I think they sit pretty in getting ranked and just going into conference play. So it's a new era of Kansas football, folks. It looks good. So we'll see what comes of that. And yeah, that shouldn't be too much of a worry. Obviously, Kansas is still going to take them seriously. But overall, good win by the Hawks, and we can probably expect a good win this coming week as well. As for Kansas State, excuse me, sorry, Kansas State had a game against Troy, who Troy honestly was one of my picks to be a surprise contender for a ranking this season. As far as like the group of five schools go, I think they have a good program there and looked good the first half. They held Kansas down, or excuse me, Kansas State down pretty well. But I think once Kansas State actually got some traction, they just ran with it. I mean, it was kind of a bloodbath. 42-13 was the final score. Kansas State looked like Kansas State after that first quarter and just didn't step on the brakes from there. So overall, very good performance. I can't stop yawning. I apologize. Very good performance by Kansas State. Very well done, and they look to, I believe, yes, they look to our next topic, Missouri, for their next game. They'll be going to Farrell Field in Columbia, and uh, we're gonna talk about the next game here. Missouri almost lost to Middle Tennessee State. They won by 4 points against Middle Tennessee State. Um, I mean, but if this team's supposed to be a contender, they certainly have not shown it as of yet. They don't look good. I mean, this is a team that is still trying to figure out their offense, even though they have a very good receiving core, a solid running back room. They just don't have a quarterback. I mean, Sam Horn is not getting the job done, and we already know that Brady Cook can't get the job done. So, I mean, maybe this game against Kansas State will be a wake up call if they get absolutely thrashed by them, but a lot of this falls on Eli Drinkwitz in his indecisiveness at the quarterback position, i.e., pretty much the most important position on the football field. Um, and it's shown because you have a scare against Middle Tennessee State. You only put up 35 against, excuse me, jeez, against the FCS team in South Dakota. It and it didn't look good doing it. So I'm concerned about this game. I will say that. Being the Kansas alum that I am, um, I hope Kansas State wins this. I hope they win it big because, frankly speaking, that's only going to make Mizzou better, in my opinion. I've long since been a detractor of Eli Drinkwitz. I think he's an absolute goober and doesn't belong in the role that he is in because of his offensive ineptitude, because he can't choose a quarterback, because he just acts like a complete goofball and says a lot of stuff that he has to backtrack which doesn't look good on him. I know he just signed an extension, but uh, it's going to be interesting to see what Kansas State does when they get to Columbia this coming weekend, because it could get very, very ugly. From what I've seen in Mizzou so far, they're not the team that some people projected them to be. There were a few people that were projecting them to go 9-3 this season. And I frankly just don't see that. I truly don't. And I understand that you've got one of the better receiving cores in the SEC. And I understand you've got a great defense, but you don't have a quarterback. And that is going to end up just biting you. So I'm predicting Kansas State to win big there. You know, just with I understand again that Missouri has a good defense and Kansas State's offense has shown weaknesses, but they're still pretty much the Kansas State offense from last year. It's if Will Howard's on, it's not going to be pretty. And if the run game can get going, it's going to be even worse. So, and forget about the Kansas State defense against this Missouri offense. I mean, that's going to be handled easily. So, pretty much Missouri's only way that they can win this game is if their defense really steps up and if Brady Cook or Sam Horn can have a good enough game to get them by. So we'll just have to see what happens. But I have very little faith in Missouri here. If you're a betting person, I would definitely hammer that over for Kansas State. So that's kind of my take on the situation. So we'll move on to the Royals. I don't really have much else in regard to college football, but be on the lookout this week for college football dogs articles for Kansas, and then potentially some articles regarding Kansas State and Missouri. So just be on the lookout for those. Okay, now we move on to the Royals. Apologies if I'm doing anything weird in the camera. My image on this side over here is frozen. So if I end up doing anything weird, just let me know. I appreciate it. um, but I mean, I'm a weird guy in general, so I probably will, but point out anything super duper out of the ordinary if you watch one of these before. Thanks. But the Royals, we've finally reached 100 losses. That's kind of the big news in regards to the Royals this week. There's really not much else to talk about. Aside from the burning question that I had, which was what do the Royals need to improve first? I asked you guys that yesterday, and I know that I know that the poll's not fully complete yet, but um, as in I put it out for a day, but we'll go ahead and look at those numbers right now. Just kind of going over each of the options that I presented, and then obviously analyzing the data collected because I am a sports scientist, a connoisseur of sports data, if you will. So let's have a look. Okay. So after looking at that data, let's go over this first option, which was their farm system that they need to improve first. Uh, the Royal farm system is bad. It's been bad. Um, it's been bad since the World Series in 2015. Um, and like I explained in that article, the only reason that World Series ever really came to fruition was because we did have a solid farm system back in the day, and the Royals also kind of had a perfect storm of free agency, of trade acquisitions, and just the fruition of development of those guys from like the 2008, 2009 farm teams. Um, and the Royals could easily get back to those years. Um, but they need to improve their farm system first. I mean, this is a farm system that is 28th in the MLB out of 30 teams, mind you. Which, isn't the worst, I suppose. But when you're a small market team, you kind of live off your farm system. And what's happened here is the Royals are not subscribing to that ideology for one reason or another, and kind of just letting their farm system go by the wayside. You kind of have to have good scouting. You have to have good management at your minor league affiliates. And just overall, you have to have the tools for success in order to build a good baseball team. And one of those key tools is the farm system, which the Royals have severely lacked in for about 10 years now. Um, it's probably not the most immediate fix, but it's a fix that will allow the players that were drafted this year, which I think was a very good draft, to develop into guys that will meet the high ceilings that are expected of them. Um, the second option here, their trades, who they keep on the roster. Only 14% of the vote went to that. 29% went to the farm system, by the way. We'll get to that third one here in just a second. Nobody voted for others, so may as well not even talk about the other options because, frankly speaking, there aren't many. And even though they exist, they're really not all that worth talking about. As far as their trade slash who they keep on the roster, uh, the ones that come to mind are guys like Whit Merrifield, like Hunter Dozier. In the case of guys that are still on the team, Brady Singer, some of the pitching core. Guys that are in their prime, but the Royals don't trade because they are expecting something out of them, even though it's been proven that this is in all likelihood not going to come to. oh, My apologies. Not really going to come to anything. I you got to trade guys when they're at their highest value. The trade market kind of lurks like the stock market, the actual stock market. You sell high, buy low, basically. And by that I mean you sell small market teams sell their best players. Small market teams that aren't doing that well sell their best players and then buy value players from the bigger market teams to improve. Which is how most small market teams have succeeded. Is they kind of just get the scraps from the big market teams and get those value deal guys. The Royals have not done that. They have gotten guys for value, but they have not gotten guys for talent. And you gotta find those value talented guys. Which they're out there because plenty of small market teams, excuse me, have gotten them. And I don't understand what the Royals' aversion is to signing guys that actually perform well. Because I mean, you look at the trades that they made this year, and they're still not signing the greatest free agents ever. They're not signing, the Kendrys Moraleses, the Ben Zobrists, the um there's a few others that I'm forgetting throughout Royals history, specifically during those 14 and 15 years. Johnny Cueto, um, you know, guys like that are the guys that make a difference. Guys like, oh man, Michael A. Taylor, does that ring a bell? Guys like that don't make any difference. So yeah, that's a big component as well. And I think it is probably their most immediate fix. Um, but in terms of being contenders, I would look at the farm system first. And then a very close second would be that trades who they keep on the roster. The third option I have here, I kind of had on as a joke, but at the same time, it's kind of serious, just a little. Um, and that's a change in ownership. You guys have heard me talk about John Sherman enough to know my opinion on our fair Royals owner. Um, yeah, investing money into your on the field product is a key, it's probably the most important part of owning a sports franchise because that's what puts butts in seats. And what John Sherman has done in his tenure as Royals owner thus far is do everything but that. Um, I mean, the Bally Sports idea. Oh man, I remember those days of ranting constantly about Bally Sports. At this point, it's a moot point. Uh, and then the whole ballpark concept, the new ballpark concept to replace the K and blah 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 blah. It's it's a mess, honestly. And John Sherman does not know how to run a baseball team. And you could ask each and every one of us, "Oh, could you do better?" Yeah, I probably could. um, First and foremost, but secondly, yeah, but I don't have that money to throw around. But Don Sherman realizes he does, and he has shown through the moves that he has done that he doesn't really care about the Kansas City population, and that's the whole reason why he's doing all this. Is to just kind of give one big middle finger to Kansas City, and yeah, would a change of ownership bring about change? Yes. Would it bring about positive change per se? That's where I don't know. The last 2 points, you know, I think would bring positive change so long as you have the right people in. This third point, it's hard, it's tough to tell because MLB owners are so hard to come by, and secondly, not a whole lot of MLB owners know what they're doing. The ones that are successful know what they're doing, but John Sherman and quite a few others, the ownership of the A's, really don't. So maybe a change of ownership is in line, but we'll have to see. Thank you guys for participating in another burning question. I really do appreciate it. Um, we had another that I meant to ask. So as I look at the burning questions, um, but I might save that for another time. Yeah, we'll see. But that one regarded, I believe it was it the Chris Jones one? No, I feel like I talked about that. No, it was the Chris Jones one. Okay. Okay. The Chris Jones one we will talk about as I missed that. So we'll go ahead and talk about Chris Jones. And then obviously the Royals burning question was already mentioned. So you get two burning questions in 1 week. I apologize. But think of it as a way of gifting more burning questions to you guys, more audience participation, and more me talking about you guys' opinions. Um, and I'll probably release another burning question to go along with this coming Sunday's ScorchCast. So thanks for bearing with me, everybody. I appreciate it. It was only just now that I realized, oh, wait, I think I had another one. So I apologize. It's been a crazy week. So speaking of the Chiefs, no, we'll get into the burning question. But speaking of the Chiefs lost against the Lions this past Thursday night to open the NFL season. Um, holy cow, Kadarius Toney can't catch a ball. I mean, these are routine catches for even high school wide receivers, and he dropped all of them. I mean, it was such an embarrassing performance. And I feel for the guy because yeah, even professional athletes have these days where they're just off. But it felt like so much more than just being off. It felt like he hadn't done any training. It felt like he wasn't prepared to be the wide receiver one. And again, I understand that he's had injuries and he's been working through those and couldn't participate in training camp, blah, blah, blah. That's not an excuse necessarily, though, when you knew going into camp, no less, that you were going to be wide receiver one. So you probably needed to prepare to be wide receiver one. Um, Other than that, though, I mean, the only other complaint I had about the Chiefs is the play calling. Why are we getting cute on 4th and short? I don't understand that. I understand that you're worried about Patrick Mahomes' health, but that freak injury that he had in what was it, like 2019? That was in 2019. That was 4 years ago. And you're still bent out of shape about it. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me that the Chiefs just don't go conservative. Even running the ball with Isaiah Pacheco or Michael Burton, even. I understand that you don't. I can't believe that the fullback has basically been phased out because it's still needed in a sense. I understand that offenses are getting more dynamic, more pass heavy, more RPOs, etc. But I mean, you can fit a fullback into there. You can. I mean, look at the San Francisco 49ers offense. Kyle Juszczyk. Um, Baltimore with Picard. And a few other guys that are keeping the fullback position alive because they are very good at their position. Guys like Anthony Sherman did it. Michael Burton could have easily have done it. But unfortunately, it's just not incorporated anymore. And now it's getting cute at the line when all you really have to do is just lurch forward with the one of the best offensive lines in the NFL and get that first down. But you're doing reverses. You're doing giving the ball to Blake Bell for God only knows what reason. Um, and just not performing how you should be on 3rd, 4th, and short. Um, and then, other than that, it didn't look like Eric Bieniemy's offense. It didn't look like the Chiefs' offense of old. It looked like an offense that had no idea what they were doing. Like they hadn't prepped at all, but you had all preseason to prep, and you just didn't, and you looked bad. And the defense looked like they had outshined you that night, frankly. Um, just my 2 cents about the negatives of that game. Some positives. The defense did look very, very good. Um, yes, I know they allowed 21 points, but that wasn't exactly their fault. Technically, they only allowed 14 because of the pick six. Um, but just it looked like a decent defense. I mean, Steve Spagnuolo looked like he had his unit prepared. Matt Nagy did not. So that's probably a point of emphasis that we'll need to watch for. So just be on the lookout for that. In terms of the burning question, though, I asked you guys last week, um, which it's kind of a moot point at this point, but just a way to kind of mention something mention something a little funny now, given the news that we know. Uh, burning question was, should Chris Jones be traded? As we know now, Chris Jones is not going to be traded. Chris Jones just signed a 1-year deal to remain with the Chiefs until basically either A, they can get a long term deal worked out, or B, he can find another team to go to, I guess. So yeah, that this new 1-year deal is worth 25 million. Includes a ton of incentives that Jones could meet in order to make it a little harder for the Chiefs to get rid of him. Um, and really just this is kind of just procrastinating a long-term deal is basically how I look at it. Um, Chiefs will need to clear cap space in order to get Chris Jones onto the field. I'm not entirely sure what they'll end up doing with that. But again, we've got a burning question here. Should Chris Jones have been traded? 50% of you voted yes if the offer is right. I'm just gonna name off the poll. I'm not gonna show it to you guys. I mean, again, it's a moot point. But should Chris Jones be traded? Yes, if the offer is right. No, because he's the centerpiece of the defense. Is this even a question? No. Is this even a question? Get him out of here. Were the four choices. 50% of you said yes if the offer is right. 33% of you said no because he's the centerpiece of the defense. And good old Coach Pearson voting for the loan. Is this even a question? Get him out of here. In Raiders fan fashion. Um, looks like he's here to stay for now. So we'll have to see what happens with that cap space situation. We'll also have to see just overall if they can get a deal done to keep him here long term, potentially. Excuse me, for the rest of his career. Just I'm glad we're finally done for now with the Chris Jones talk. Because boy howdy was it getting exhausting. So in terms though of non-football news, basically, Travis Kelce is hopefully going to be back for Jacksonville. Number one, they said they're optimistic about his chances. They kept him out this past week because it was kind of a game time decision, but he's been practicing and he looks okay. So he will, in all likelihood, be playing for the Chiefs when they go to Jacksonville. Uh, Gosh, I cannot stop yawning, and I apologize. Um, I don't even know if I should mention this in my podcast, but Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are rumored to be talking right now in terms of the relationship style of talking. Boy, howdy. You know, I hope this doesn't bring any distractions. That's all I have to say about it. Because frankly speaking, I don't care either way about that. As long as it doesn't bring a distraction, I don't care. More power to him. Going from his old girlfriend of Kayla to Taylor Swift is a bit of an interesting move. Um, Travis Kelce, I guess, just doesn't have a type, but in some cases that's good. But yeah, just interesting news on that front. I just heard about that today, so you know, cool. Okay, I'm gonna get into some sporting news, some sporting KC news. I had a British viewer correct me saying it's not sporting news. It's sporting Kansas City news. Sporting news is what you do to begin with. Apologies for the very, very bad British accent. Um, to all of my viewers from across the pond. All like two or three of you. But my apologies. But yeah, just Sporting Kansas City ended up coming up with a pretty bad loss for their playoff chances this past week against a very, very tough Inter Miami squad featuring the Lionel Messi. I.e., if you don't know who he is, you should. Um, but yeah, just it doesn't look good for this. It doesn't look good for their playoff chances. Like I said, there is still a month left, so the playoff race is still semi open, I suppose. Um, but this loss hurts, and it hurts bad. Um, because you lost to the second to last team in the Eastern Conference, and it bumps you down to 12th, and that last playoff spot is 5 points away now. Not looking great. You basically have to win out and then have some help, um, which is not the most ideal situation for Sporting Kansas City. Granted, they could go on a streak. They've got, let me have a look here. They've got a couple, if I remember right, they got a couple pretty good teams ahead of them. Um, so you got Minnesota, who is seventh in the West. You've got Nashville, which is seventh in the East. You've got Houston, who is fifth in the West. And then you cap off the season against St. Louis, who is currently first in the West, and I believe in the entire MLS. If I remember right. Yeah, in the entire MLS. Um, right, no. Cincy is the fifth place in the entire MLS. St. Louis is second. But it's a tough schedule, especially when you can't pull out a win over the bottom dwellers. Yes, I know they have Lionel Messi, and I know they've been good since acquiring Lionel Messi, but they're still bottom dwellers of the Eastern Conference, and the fact that you couldn't pull out a win against them is tough. I mean, I know it was 3-2, but there has to be some defense against. Yes, I know he's the GOAT, but there's got to be at least some sort of defense against him. This can't just be his publicity tour. I mean, you got to at least kind of prove that American soccer can hang with the big boys, right? But, the playoffs just don't look that in reach anymore. I thought there was a lot of promise before we went to the League Cup break, and after the League Cup break, especially with the performance the Sporting had in the League Cup, it it kind of got tougher and tougher to justify them making the playoffs. And at this point, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they don't. So, gonna need a lot of help. Gonna need to basically win out. I just don't like the chances. There is next year though, and hopefully by next year, um, they'll have those pieces together. I don't see them firing Peter Vermees. I think that would be a dumb idea. I think he's done what he could to manage the turmoil that has happened this year and the roster turnover and the lack of chemistry, etc. And he's done his best to get this team into at least shape that into a shape that can be competitive, but does have their downsides. So overall, I don't think Peter Vermees gets fired after this year. So um, let's go ahead and talk about some current news and some minor news, and then we'll wrap up, shall we? Okay. Final news of this evening. KC Current also lost against Angel City. They are out of league or they're out of Challenge Cup contention. They lost in the semifinals, and it's not looking great for the playoffs. So, Current are basically all but eliminated. They could still end the season off on a high note by getting some quality wins against over some quality teams. But overall, that season's kind of looking into next season now. Um, but you've got a new stadium. You've got a team that has shown that they can have bounce back. I feel like this was just kind of a season after making it to the championship slump that a lot of pro teams do have. Um, so overall, I'm not too too discouraged with the performance of the Current this season. They have the pieces there, they have the players there. It's just a matter of building up that chemistry and kind of just rebuilding around a coach that will be there for the long haul and not just be an interim. So, um, that's kind of my current news. Uh, Blues news now. The Blues had their home matchup, their first of the fall season, the home opener against the Wisconsin Rugby Club out of Madison, Wisconsin. It went over pretty well. The Blues ended up winning. I believe the final score was 27-16, with some pretty solid tries from Danny Ofgar. Had some quality plays from Jimmy Lillis and Zach Cohen. Um, you also had some solid plays from Izzy and Greg, um, to cap off the performance. Very big physical game. Had a couple scuffles in there to kind of really exemplify the physicality of this game. It was a very fun game to watch. Some we we had some soccer parents turn around and watch the game. Just wondering how that was going. So we made some new fans over the weekend, not just at Ren Fair, but with this Kansas City Current facility and some KCU soccer parents as well. It was a very fun game to watch. If you didn't see me, I was running register, and running cash box as well as spectating and yeah, it was a lot of fun to take in my first rugby game of the season. Uh, this coming Saturday, the boys will be traveling to Chicago to go take on the Lions. A very, very, very good team. So it should be a real real test against the Chicago Lions. So good luck to the boys as they make their way up to Chicago. The D2 guys will be playing Wichita at Hodge Park. So be going to Hodge Park if you want to watch some rugby this weekend. Should be a great time. So that's our show for this fine Tuesday afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me, whether you joined as this was uploaded or whether you joined later. I really appreciate your viewership, your patience, your readership, and overall, just thank you for being you. This has been the Burn Casey signing off. Have a great night.